Right now on the National Weather Desk, heavy snow overnight in the Pacific Northwest. We're going to see why it's being called the winter saving storm.
Really, it's just about, knowing what that fire danger is, practicing fire safety.
This year's wildfire season is off to an early start. We'll hear from an expert about why that's happening.
It is always concerning to see stuff come up earlier than we expect it to come up. And we're always worried about the health of the plant as a result.
Warmer winter temperatures are cause for celebration, but it can be bad news for your plants. We'll show you how to protect them. And we will hear from a woman who uses the sound of melting snow to make music. Good morning.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Amira David. We begin today out of the Pacific Northwest, where a dose of winter weather is being called the winter saving storm. Travel conditions could be dangerous this morning in some areas, but most of that heavy snow is at higher elevations. We have two reports for you. We begin with Jackie Kent, who was at Stevens Pass, about 2 hours outside of Seattle, Washington.
The skiers and snowboarders are cruising and scooting through this latest snowfall that is making up for the deficit seen at the beginning of the season that even led the resort to delay its opening. Director of Mountain Operations Vince Arthur says his crew was ecstatic to see they've received 15 inches of snow since last night, and the snow forecast for the coming days is more good news for visitors. Skiers and snowboarders are noticing the difference from this latest storm. But with all this snowfall comes a warning for people making that trek here. There is low visibility on US 2. WashDOT reports, luckily so far there have been no major problems. They are urging caution for anyone planning to travel over the Cascade passes to check ahead for possible delays and flurry conditions. WashDOT crews are still working their winter maintenance schedule. That means they are out 24/7. They even have people staying at a burn camp nearby.
I'm not used to driving in ice.
You may not even know that you're traveling on icy roads until it's too late.
UDOT explains this storm is different.
And if there's anything that's a challenge with this particular storm, it's that it is coming in as rain and then quickly changing over with the cold front to snow. And that makes it impossible for us to put down the brine solution, which makes it harder for the snow to stick to the roads.
So what is UDOT doing differently to manage the roads in this storm? Gleason says instead of that brine solution, crews will plow and salt the roads.
I just, drive slower, much slower. Just gotta watch out for everyone.
Mother Nature is here to remind us winter is not quite done.
There is a storm threatening the Midwest today. Let's turn to Brian Vandegraff, who's tracking that system for us.
All eyes on the middle portion of the country today. Through this areas, we'll see the best chance for some stronger weather, including a marginal risk for some flooding rains. And on top of that, we're going to be looking at the potential for some large hail, damaging winds, and even a few tornadoes possible. A few storms through the early portion of the day, but then later into the evening, that's when a strong line could make its way through portions of Missouri, Indiana, and right on into Ohio. That'll be the area we're watching most carefully. Also talk about the potential for several inches of rain before it moves out on Thursday.
Brian, thank you. And while some parts of the country are dealing with cold snow and rain, other areas have been experiencing spring-like temperatures. Well, that might be good news for some. Not everyone is exactly happy about the lack of cold. David Winter is in Cincinnati with more.
An early spring is on the way!
The rodent got it right this year. Punxsutawney Phil did not see his shadow, predicted an early spring, and provided an opportunity for a midday tea time for Dan Baker.
It's awesome. Nice. Beautiful out here.
And Dan is not alone. The Grizzly course in Mason is in full swing, with spring still 3 weeks away. The one downside to the great golf weather in February is the difficulty in finding golf employees, when most of them are still 700 or 800 miles from here.
Because most of our staff is retired and down in Florida. We staff up and we do as much as we can, but this is just bonus days. This is good.
But not so good for the AAA auto wash in Madisonville. When the snow comes down, the revenues go up.
They call it white gold. When the salt goes on the road, it's going to get on the cars, and everyone needs to get their car clean, right? No one wants to rust on their car.
Less salt, less business. But if you're the one doing the dirty work, the warm weather is not all bad.
I done took my hoodie off, coat hanging up. It's pretty good, man. I like weather like this.
So do the people who are swinging hammers 30 feet up. Their boss is fairly indifferent, though, about the weather.
I believe it means earlier business. I don't think that the pool gets bigger. I think the pool just comes ahead.
Either way, the early spring allows these guys, like groundhogs, to come out of hibernation a bit early.
In northeast Wisconsin, the warmer temperatures mean an early start to wildfire season, and officials say now is the time to start preparing. Meteorologist Christian Palacio spoke with a wildfire prevention expert to learn more.
Northeast Wisconsin hasn't seen several inches of snow depth since January 31st. Add to that a nearly bone-dry February, and you get weather concerns for our region.
But generally speaking, we are under elevated fire conditions, and this is a result of warmer temperatures, low humidity, breezy conditions, and then coupled with very dry vegetation.
Catherine Cooley is the wildfire prevention specialist with the Wisconsin DNR. She says it's not uncommon for the state to be under fire danger, but it usually happens in the spring, not this early.
It typically starts in the south, and we usually kind of plan about that mid-March, late March in the southern part, and it progressively moves north. And it's usually kind of wrapped up by Memorial Day.
Cooley mentioned, however, last year's wildfire season lasted well into the summer months. The good news is some rain and snow are in the forecast for the middle of this week.
Obviously, we'll take whatever precipitation we can get. It definitely helps, lets our firefighters rest a day or two. But we'll be right back at it, especially in our sandy soils and our pine areas. Those areas can dry out very, very quickly, and it can take less than a day.
The Wisconsin DNR reports over 98% of wildfires in the state are caused by people. Cooley says there are many ways to prevent wildfires from happening.
Really, it's just about knowing what that fire danger is, practicing fire safety, things like obtaining proper permits, having a good safe campfire or debris pile, making sure the area around your fire is clear of all flammable materials, staying with your fire and monitoring it. If it gets away from you, dial 911 immediately.
Those wildfires come with a long list of dangers, including poor air quality. Particles from the smoke can enter your lungs and bloodstream and can cause serious health issues for sensitive groups. Meteorologist Lexi Horvath spoke with an expert on air pollution to find out more.
We got to the unhealthy point because of the forest fires.
Jim Holloway with the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Air Pollution Control Bureau broke down what caused this unhealthy air quality level Monday morning.
The problems we're having today is mostly coming from fires, which are burning in the south and coming from the west.
This map from Esri shows where the forest fires are located and where the wind is carrying the smoke from. A majority of the smoke coming in from the west and south.
People who have heart conditions should stay indoors. You should keep young children indoors. Elderly people should stay indoors.
According to the Air Pollution Control Bureau, while we are currently in burn season until April 30th, you cannot burn if air quality levels are 101 or higher, meaning levels in orange, red, or above.
Today is an unhealthy day, at least it was this morning, but there is good news. As the day goes on, the air is becoming better.
And as we get closer to the upcoming allergy season,
the only thing that will get worse is the pollen season from the trees and other weeds and grass and things of that nature. But to protect themselves, again, you wear the mask, you stay inside on high pollen days as much as you can.
The Odysseus moon lander is expected to stop communicating with Earth later today. Intuitive Machines, its maker, says it intended to collect data until the lander's solar panels were no longer exposed to light. They believe that will happen in the next several hours. Intuitive Machines has already released an image during its approach to the moon, but none since it landed. And check this out. For the first time ever, scientists are unveiling a 240-million-year-old dragon in its entirety. The 5-meter-long reptile from the Triassic period was first identified in China in 2003. Scientists say it's very reminiscent of a Chinese dragon. The extremely long neck likely helped it to catch fish. Pretty creepy looking. Coming up here on the National Weather Desk, we're going to hear from the woman who makes music from the sound of melting glaciers. Plus tips on helping you get the perfect spring garden.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with a look at the Northeast. Temperatures will again surge back into the 50s and even near 60 for some areas today. It's going to be a mild day. Wednesday is the last real mild day for a few days anyway. We'll have periods of rain with strong, gusty southerly winds. That's about 7 p.m. on Wednesday. That front right there, that means business. It's the boundary between the mild air mass in place and colder air that will come rushing in on a stiff northwest wind on Thursday. There could be some scattered outages both Wednesday and Thursday.
I'm meteorologist Jasmine Lomax with a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. We start the day with mostly dry weather. However, into the afternoon, showers will spread across the region. Then as we head into the night, expect off and on showers with more rain on the way on Wednesday, all as the cold front moves across the region. By the afternoon, high temperatures reach the 40s, 50s, and 60s for another warm day. Then overnight, we'll cool down to the 40s and 50s. Cooler temperatures will follow on Thursday.
I'm meteorologist Charlotte Carl. We have a warm day ahead, a warming trend into the second half of this week. Highs today in the 80s for most of our friends in the western part of our area. 70s mostly everywhere else. 80 in Orlando, upper 70s down in South Florida. We see a mix of sun and clouds for most of us, a bit of showers developing off of the mountains, and then we will see another line of showers develop into Wednesday morning.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
For many, the warmer temperatures across much of the country are a cause for celebration. But as Kaylee Whitlatch explains from Iowa, it can be a cause for concern if you have flowers and plants that get a little out of sorts in terms of where we are on the calendar.
We're blessed, and we get one day closer to spring. We're tempted, but it's not the time of the year for us to be out and doing a lot in the beds and in the gardens.
An Iowa's News Now viewer sent us this view of their daffodils in Iowa City, a common sight lately with plants popping up earlier than usual with the warmth and sunshine we've been getting. But Iowa State Horticulture Extension Specialist Aaron Stiles says most plants should be able to rebound even if we do see another cold snap.
It is always concerning to see stuff come up earlier than we expect it to come up. And we're always worried about the health of the plant as a result. But in reality, most of the time they can figure a way out, and we might see a little bit of damage this year, or we might lose a few flowers this year. But in general, most plants will be able to bounce back.
Bloom's Garden Center owner Peter Gasper says you can insulate your plants with straw or mulch to protect from all kinds of conditions.
It allows for the air to circulate. It allows shade. A lot of the early bloomers.
For now, Gasper says to let any leaves alone as pollinators like bees are still hibernating. You should be watering any plants like shrubs or saplings under age 10. But as weather continues to change, your garden may not be ready to be tended to until next month or two.
We're bound to get some tough days. We've got to. Mother Nature won't let us get by with this until spring.
Well, spring is almost here, and that means farmers and growers in Missouri are almost ready for planting. Planting crops seems simple enough, but it's a lot more complicated than you might think. Hagen Zinneker explains.
With spring on the horizon, temperatures are on the rise, and moisture is becoming more prevalent. Despite this, soil moisture has to be balanced, not only for the seeds within it, but also for the equipment and vehicles that drive over them.
In order for farmers to be able to plant their crops, the soil has to be dry enough that they can move the equipment across the field without compacting the soil, because when the soil is too wet, it can cause compaction. And then conversely, there has to be enough moisture in the soil for the seed to germinate.
Not only does the soil moisture have to be precise, the temperatures just a couple inches under the soil have to be precise as well. A balance of these two allows for optimal seed germination and growth. This is why planting season for corn and soybeans is usually in April and May.
Once we get to that 50-degree soil temperature for corn and 55 to 60 for soybeans, the seeds can germinate then, when they have adequate moisture.
So far, conditions are favorable for planting. However, the weather has to behave properly. Regular rainfalls must occur in order to prevent another drought like last year.
The conditions in North Missouri are going to be favorable for planting and crop growth unless the weather turns dry again like it did last year.
And we are now just 41 days away from the solar eclipse across America. The best way to view the eclipse is with those special glasses. Now, if you can't do that, there are other ways to view the event safely. Meteorologist Lynette Grant shows you how.
So that little dot right there will be the moon. This dot right here will be the Earth. And then as I move it, you can see the shadow.
Josiah Nelson is just one of the physics students at Indiana University South Bend getting ready for the April 8th total solar eclipse. Because of the rotation of both the moon and the Earth, an eclipse is not that rare.
They happen a lot more often than you think, every 2 to 5 years. It's just it's really dependent on where that eclipse is.
When viewing an eclipse glasses or some other sort of filter is the safest way to do so. Because they take in so much light to view objects in the night sky, physics professor Henry Scott says a telescope is not a safe tool to use to view an eclipse.
I really try to discourage it because they are so rare, and there is a real risk of getting too much light, and it's like taking a magnifying glass to your eye. Just the opposite of what you want to do with an eclipse.
If you can't get your hands on eclipse glasses, there are other ways to safely view the event. The pinhole method is just one of them.
Take a shoebox, just put a pinhole in it, and then you get the right angle on the light to where it'll reflect into the box.
Statewide, communities are getting ready for the eclipse. The Indiana Department of Homeland Security already has plans in place to increase the level of staffing at the state's Emergency Operations Center.
Because of all of the people will be here and resources will be so tapped, if we wait until the day of the event to have things ready, there is no way we would be in any position to get people where they potentially needed to be.
Well, Norwegian sound artist Janne Winderen uses hydrophones to record melting glaciers and transforms the haunting sounds into compositions. Emily Gracie recently spoke to her about her process and what she hopes to accomplish with her work.
I guess about 20 years ago, I started to listening to glaciers. And I realized that, it's like a sort of massive, alive organism, because first time I was up in Iceland, recording there with my 2 daughters at the time. They were quite small. And we walked up to this glacier, Vatnajökull. And I put my hydrophones close to the glacier and also the little small microphones inside the glacier itself. And it was this massive rumble sound that I heard.
Your recordings, what do you do with them? Where do they go after you record?
So I record as much as possible there in many files, of course, and often many days after each other. And then immediately I will be re-listening to everything and log it and write notes. How I work with it in the studio depends also where it's going to be shown or listened to.
What are your goals when it comes to people listening to this? What do you hope they get out of it?
Well, I'm hoping that they can be inspired to ask questions and to, raise awareness of the importance of, the sound, for example, then, the sound for fish, the sound for crustaceans, and that we are considering this when we are moving in the ocean. Yeah, I just hope to inspire people, basically. I hope to to be asking questions and maybe even start to listen themselves.
How fascinating. And to hear Jana's work, make sure you check out this week's episode of our podcast. You'll also hear her talk about the global changes she has witnessed firsthand in her decades of recording glaciers. Find Off the Radar anywhere you listen to podcasts. And as we head to break, we take to the skies over Florida's Normandy Beach.
Well, a very good Tuesday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. We have snow across the northern plains today, some scattered thunderstorms across the Ohio Valley. So a little bit of everything for the day today. Moving into tomorrow, this all slowly is going to be shifting its way to the east. And behind that, it's going to be a lot colder for the day tomorrow. And as we roll on into your Thursday, pretty quiet for most of the Midwest, but it will be a little cooler for a lot of us. So you're going to need to keep the jackets handy. We're not quite done with winter or the cooler temperatures just yet.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. Here's a look at your regional weather. We're starting off a little warmer than normal, particularly all the way from Texas back up into Oklahoma. We'll be watching a little bit of a dry line throughout the rest of the region. That's going to help kind of warm things up, but look what's coming. Another cold front. That could mean some colder air and much cooler temperatures coming up in the next couple of days. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia, and that's a look at your regional weather.
Well, hi there, everybody, and a good Tuesday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. After running a little on the warm side, winter has finally been able to wake back up, and it's steering right into western Montana and into Jackson Hole today, where we're only going to top out at 23 degrees. 70, on the other hand, out of Las Vegas, back into the upper 50s in the city by the bay. Look at this front dropping through the midsection of the country, back down into Denver for some snow in the Mile High City, or at least in the mountains nearby as well. And that's the scene from here.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
A viewer sent us these pictures of ice shoves along Lake Michigan on Sunday. Ice shoves occur when currents in the water pile up chunks of ice onto the shore. They're beautiful, but they can damage docks, piers, or even homes if they're too close to the water. And this photographer got right to the point over the weekend with this shot of the Washington Monument and the snow moon.
For more content like this, like the National Weather Desk on Facebook.
Rain is in the forecast for several places this week, and while that might make things inconvenient, the rain can actually help us breathe better. Theron Zahn explains.
You may have heard that when the rain moves in, it can actually clean the air that we breathe, but exactly how does that work? According to scientists at MIT, when raindrops are falling from the sky, on the surface of those drops, they can attract particulates, things like soot, sulfates, or even pollen. That means when the rain comes to the ground, it brings with it those pollutants, making the air cleaner to breathe, and can also even cut down on your allergies.
And if you want to see more content like this, be sure to check us out on social media. You can find us on all of your favorite social media platforms. Just search the National Weather Desk. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Amira David. Make it a great Tuesday, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.